Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Laura, and today I want to go over 5 of the spookiest books that I have read. With the caveat being, not a lot of books that I've read have genuinely made my heart race and made me feel like I need to keep the lights on and read it during the day. I've read a decent amount of horror. I'm still kind of dipping my toes into it. But things like slashers, both in movie form and book form, don't necessarily scare me. Like, I'm down for the ride, and it's disturbing if you think about it like in a real sense, but in the entertainment sense, it's fun. So these are books that for one reason or another have genuinely spooked me in some way. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're the most horrific story, if that makes sense. And the first one that I want to talk about is You by Carolyn Kepnes. This follows Joe Goldberg, who talks to the reader. Essentially, you're inside of his head, and he spends his time talking to you. Now, you, in the context of the story, is Guinevere Beck. He's not literally talking to you, the reader, but because of the use of second person, it feels like he's talking to you. And it's so creepy. It took me a really long time to get through this book because Joe is just messed up. And being inside of his brain is not a place that I want to be. Now, if you're familiar with the book or the TV show, I think season 1 follows the book pretty closely. And I do think this is definitely worth a read. It's very interesting, very creepy, and I genuinely had to read this slowly and over a long period of time because it kept making my skin crawl. I also do not think that Caroline has managed to capture the lightning that this book was with the remaining sequels. Hidden Bodies was not told in second person, so it was more of a generic thriller. It was interesting, but it was like nothing fantastic. But it was interesting, and I liked it. I hated book 3, although it did go back to the second person, but it wasn't nearly as creepy. And book 4 was just trash. I didn't finish it. I hated it. It was awful. But this was so good. The next book that I want to talk about is All's Well by Mona Awad, which, while I was reading this, didn't actually scare me. So I feel like that already goes against what this whole plot of the video was, but I could not stop thinking about it after it was done. It was so creepy and so just under your skin. And it was the first book of hers that I read. Hi, baby girl. I read Bunny after this, and I'm reading Rouge with Ashley's Little Library Book Club next month, so I haven't actually read that yet. But this is like my favorite Mona Awad. I know everyone's is Bunny. This is mine. I am obsessed. It was so creepy. It's the only thing I can come up with to talk about. Can you not rub the tripod? Can we not do that? Okay, hold on. Oh, okay, she fell. But this follows a woman who has chronic illness, and she is the drama department head at a college, I believe. And she is dealing with debilitating back pain. And she runs into these people at a bar who basically offer to help her. And then she gets like maniacally better. And just the journey she takes is bizarre in typical Mona Awad fashion. And just, it gets under your skin. I don't know what else to say about it if you haven't read it. For the drama department, they are putting on a production of Hamlet, right? No, not Hamlet, Macbeth, the one you can't say the name of. I am not a Shakespeare nerd. I don't mean nerd in a bad way. I just never cared about Shakespeare, so I'm not like super up on all the lore. And so my understanding is that this is actually a Macbeth retelling, but I am uncultured and would not know that for sure. So Take that with a grain of salt from someone who is smarter than me. I believe Kayla from Books on Lala probably has talked about it more in depth. But if you like Hamlet, then don't listen to me. If you like Macbeth, I'm guessing this is probably fun to catch all of the connections that I definitely didn't catch. And if you like Mona Awad, obviously you should just read this because it's Mona Awad. But keep in mind, it may not scare you outright, but it's gonna just sit inside your brain and it's all you're gonna think about for days, weeks, forever. I can't stop thinking about it. I need to reread this. I didn't think about that. Ooh. The next one that I want to talk about is Into the Drowning Deep by Mira Grant, which is about a group of people. I don't know why I said it like that. It's a group of people who are going out on a boat expedition to basically prove that mermaids are real. There was previously like a reality show that had gone out on a boat to prove this. Something happened, the boat disappeared. And so now we're following kind of the aftermath of that. Like, we don't know why they disappeared. We have no proof of anything, but people are convinced that it's mermaids. And the public is equally convinced that mermaids are real and that this wasn't reality TV and that it was all faked. No one knows. So this crew is going out to determine the truth. And when I tell you, this felt like a horror movie in a book, which is, I mean, that's what a horror book is, but this is the first time that I have read one and truly felt like I was watching a horror movie on the page. It was so gross, but like not so gross I couldn't handle it because like I'm not into body horror. That is usually where the gross draws the line for me, is when it's about the body and about the eyes. Those are just like the things. I know your eyes are part of your body, but like eyes are specific. No, I don't wear contacts specifically because eyes freak me out so much. So when I tell you that this was gross, but like it worked, it's not so graphic. It is appropriately gory and it's scary and it's atmospheric and it's dark and twisted, and you've got multiple protagonists and you're kind of attached to everybody and nobody, and you don't know who's going to make it out alive, if anyone's going to make it out alive. And I learned an interesting fact about anglerfish while I read this that I don't want to share, but just like when you're done reading this, look up the difference between a male anglerfish and a female anglerfish if you really want to be freaked out by the end of this book, because I cannot stop thinking about that either. But Killer Mermaids, an isolated watery setting, and Mira Grant. Like, I am actually genuinely afraid to read Feed because it's a zombie story by her and I don't think I can handle it, but like, let me know. The fourth book is Dead Silence by S.A. Barnes, which is a space horror. So this was scary kind of until the end. The ending kind of didn't land for me, I will be honest. I was kind of hoping for a different trajectory than the way the book went. So this is kind of really maybe should have been fifth place, but I did this in the order in which I read them. So that's why this one's fourth. But it follows a space crew who is investigating a mysterious noise, and they stumble upon what is essentially a space Titanic that had gone missing, and nobody knew what happened to them. No one could find it, and everyone on board was dead, right? Or assumed dead because of how long they had been gone and like the provisions that would have been available to them. So we're following a small crew who stumbles upon Space Titanic and the horrors within. And much like being on the sea is scary because there's no land around, being in space terrifies me because you cannot save yourself. There is nothing you can do. If you're stranded in space, you're stranded in space. That's it, donezo. The odds of you getting found and the fact that you could be just anywhere. There is no up or down in space. Like, you can just float away into oblivion. And then you would just like die from suffocation if the elements didn't get to you first. All of that. So that alone terrifies me. And then the horrors within were also terrifying. But the ending doesn't really land. So it's kind of more like a 3-star book, but the atmosphere was good. Like when you're in Space Titanic, it was spooky and eerie and gross, and I really, really enjoyed that part. So, grain of salt. It's a fun one, not a must read. Hi, do you want to say hi, Stormy? I love you too. Hi. Okay, I know, you don't like being held. You're being such a good girl. And the last book on my list is The Last Word by Taylor Adams, which I actually just read about a week or two ago. And let me tell you, I've only read one other Taylor Adams, and that was No Exit, which I really did enjoy. But this one freaked me out. Like, you're following a young woman who is house sitting on a beach, in a remote beach house. And it's just her and her dog. The closest neighbor is not very close. They communicate via telescope and whiteboard. She's very isolated. And she is also just intentionally isolating herself. The Wi-Fi, cell reception, all of that's very spotty. So it's all just like a perfect recipe, right? And so the atmosphere alone was creepy and eerie, and that got to me on its own. But then she's reading all these horror novels and she's kind of laughing at the protagonist. Like, how could you be in this situation? Not realizing, of course, that she's about to be in that situation, right? And so she ends up leaving a 1-star review on this book that was just the worst book she's ever read. And the author gets incredibly hostile with her. And then suddenly she's clearly being stalked and targeted. And when I tell you, I was terrified the whole book. And there's a spoiler related to the dog. If you want spoilers about the dog, I know it's a very important topic. The dog lives. That was very, but like, you are going to be stressed about it until the end. But the dog lives. But the atmosphere of just this woman being alone in a house, dealing with her demons, being stalked, it all takes place at night. I could not read this alone in the dark. I couldn't do it. I ended up reading it like before work and during work and after work when the sun was out because I couldn't do it alone in the dark. I do think the ending kind of dragged out. I think it was a little too long at the end, but with how uncomfortable I felt the whole time while I was reading it, I couldn't stop reading it. Like, if you like Taylor Adams, absolutely, I think this is a must read. I've only read 2 of his books, so I don't know if this is the anomaly or the standard. No Exit I thought was really, really good, but I didn't get quite the same creepy vibe, but he is great at atmosphere. Because even, I will say, when I read No Exit, I remember just kind of getting the vibes of being cold because the whole book takes place in a winter, like below freezing temperature. So, like, clearly he knows how to do atmosphere. It's kind of like, is everything else going to be scary? And for this one, 100%. It was so good. And that's it. Those are all the ones on my shelves that I have read that have genuinely scared me in some way or another. I am always looking for another fantastic horror read, so if you have some good recommendations, let me know. And they don't have to scare me like that. I mean, what is it? One of my favorites, come on. One of my favorite horror novels that I've read didn't really scare me at all, which is Tastes Like Candy by Ivy Tholen, which was fully a cover buy because it's stunning. Look at this. I love cotton candy. That's half of it. But this is just such a fun slasher. Like, that's all it is. It is just a slasher. And it was a fun romp. It was gross and I enjoyed it. Didn't scare me. So I'm going to make this my honorable mention for favorite horror that also didn't scare me. I don't know why that's my honorable mention category, but it is. So I recommend this because look, it's so fun. Okay, anyway, that is all from me, and I will see you guys in another video very soon.